the action genre has kind of been getting a makeover over the last few years. It's a pretty slow process, but you can see it in games like Piano 3 or Gun Valkyrie. Probably the clearest example of where this started is Capcom's Devil May Cry. And what a lot of these games are trying to do is really kind of infuse the action genre with a sense of style. And ultimately that style is something that shouldn't just be a visual one, but something that carries over into the gameplay as well and really kind of creates this kind of almost free-form, very stylish gameplay scenario. Viewtiful Joe is probably the new clearest example of how to make a really stylish action game. It has all these cool features, it's got a very cool look, and the combat is highly stylized, and it's also rewarding if you play it in a stylish fashion. But it never seems forced. That's a problem that a lot of games fall into that Viewtiful Joe definitely avoids. The game, just from top to bottom, is a whole lot of fun. Joe is a regular Joe, pretty much. He's a movie fan. He likes to go see these old kind of Japanese superhero-style movies, starting Captain Blue. And Captain Blue is kind of an Ultraman or Kamen Rider or a Power Rangers-style figure. So Joe is catching one of these old films at a movie theater with his girlfriend Sylvia when all heck breaks loose and the movie monsters kind of come out of the screen, kidnap Sylvia, beat the heck out of Captain Blue, putting him out of the picture. So it's kind of up to Joe to learn from Captain Blue and kind of become a hero of his own. A superhero wouldn't really be worth anything if it wasn't for his superpowers. And the superpowers in Viewtiful Joe are what kind of take the game from being a standard kind of platforming game with punches and kicks and kind of makes it, this very stylish, very cool game. So basically, when you're Viewtiful Joe, you can double jump and you can punch and kick. It's pretty standard, pretty basic 2D fighting mechanics. There's some combos here and there you can work in. But what really, kind of takes the combat to that next level are Joe's superpowers. The first one you earn is slow motion. Basically, holding in the left trigger will slow things down for just about as long as you need to take out a handful of enemies. Slow motion is used a lot throughout the entire game. It solves a lot of puzzles. It's a basic staple of combat. Joe's second power is the opposite of slow, and it's Mach speed. Basically, Mach speed brings everything up into high gear, and you can really kind of unleash really crazy combos at this point. Everything's running really quickly, so you can just kind of wail on the punch and kick buttons and really just knock guys around. The other benefit here is that when you really get going with Mach speed stuff and are really punching and kicking quickly, Joe will actually catch on fire, and you can use this to light bombs and do things like that. The third and final power isn't as clear-cut as the other two, and that's zoom. Basically what this does is you tap the C stick up to zoom in or down to zoom out. And when you're zoomed in, this kind of a close-up screen time you get from getting your close-up in this movie world is it has the effect of freezing lesser enemies in their tracks. They'll be scared of your star power and stop, so you can basically jack them up real good. You also gain a few attacks when you're zoomed in. There's a cool spin kick that you can do, and also probably the game's most useful attack for bosses is a rapid-fire punch technique that you can do when you're zoomed in. All these powers fit together to make a pretty challenging game. There's definitely a learning curve to it, and success or failure depends on your ability to use these powers effectively. You can't use them forever. You have a VFX meter that basically drains as soon as you start using any one of the powers, and it fills back up slowly when you stop using them. You can make this bar longer by collecting items throughout the levels, but at the beginning of every world, your meter will go back down to its default size. So the flow of the gameplay is basically broken up into scenes. You will walk from left to right along the levels, sometimes right to left, and encounter enemies that you have to take out. They'll kind of attack you in waves, so you'll get maybe 3 guys jumping out. As you beat one, another one jumps on until they're all kind of taken care of. The idea is to take them out as quickly as possible so you can earn the most points to upgrade your character later. And you also run into several of these kind of puzzle-solving sections where you have to figure out which power you need to move forward and things of that nature. At the end of every world, you'll fight a boss. The bosses are large and colorful and very animated. This is where some of the game's speech comes into play, these cutscenes before the fights. and the boss battles are generally pretty good. As you'd expect from a boss battle in a 2D game, it really kind of comes down to pattern recognition, and your ability to recognize these patterns, combined with your ability to effectively use Joe's powers, is really what will ultimately figure out, how hard the game's going to be for you. Viewtiful Joe has a real crazy look to it. We've all played games that have kind of used and abused this cell shading technique, and it's reaching a point where it's practically overused. But Viewtiful Joe looks anything but stale. It does use the cell shading, but really kind of sets it apart is the characters just look really great. They're well animated. The cell shading actually does add a lot to the game. It really kind of gives it a comic book look and feel to it. But the characters themselves, and just the shading that goes into making them look the way they look, is extremely well done. And the animation for the fighting and the dodge moves, little kind of matrix effects and stuff, really do bring a lot to the game, and it really just looks fantastic. The key thing to know about Viewtiful Joe is that Viewtiful Joe is awesome. That's really what needs to be said. If you need a little qualification with that, it's awesome because it pulls off this stylish look and feel. It pulls off this stylish gameplay without kind of having to compromise. We see a lot of games that go for the stylish stuff and just fail because it uses it as a crutch. But Viewtiful Joe really combines all the elements together really, really well. It looks great, sounds great, it plays extremely well, and it basically modernizes the 2D platformer and kind of the beat-em-up genre at the same time. And when combined, it's really an unstoppable combination. If you're looking for an action game that does things a little differently, but does things in a fantastic way, Viewtiful Joe is definitely worth the price of admission.